session is part of a special series of webinars highlighting new and existing approaches to leadership in a time of global crisis. My name is Rini Simon Khanna, and I thank you for joining us today from around the Asia-Pacific region and also from other parts of the world. We have a very motivating panel, and I'd like to introduce them to you. We have with us the Undersecretary General Secretary of SMEs, Armida Salcia Aliciabana. She was the Minister of National Development Planning and the head of the National Development Planning Agency in Indonesia for 5 years. She served as co-chair of the Global Partnership for Effective Development Cooperation and was the alternate governor of the World Bank and the alternate governor of the Asian Development Bank, representing the government of Indonesia. From Japan, we are joined by the chairperson and CEO of Kokusai Kogyo Company Limited, Ms. Sandra Wu. Ms. Wu has been the president of the Kokusai Kogyo Holdings Company, a spatial information consulting firm since 2009, which is the holding company of the Japan Asia Group. Ms. Wu has been a member of the board of the United Nations Global since 2018. From the Philippines, we have with us Mr. Jaime Zobel de Ayala, who is at the helm of 20 different companies and is the chairman and CEO of Ayala Corp. Ayala is one of the largest business groups in the Philippines with interests in real estate, banking, telecommunications, water, power, industrial technologies, infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Apart from his responsibilities on the boards of the Ayala Group companies, Jaime is a member of various international and local business and socio-civic, recognized as an SDG pioneer by the UN on sustainable business strategy and operations. So welcome, esteemed speakers, to this webinar. But before I jump into the session, a couple of housekeeping notes that I would like to share with you. Simultaneous translation of this session is available in Japanese. You can switch to your language preference directly on your screen, and instructions will be shared with you through the chat box. All through this webinar, you can send your questions for the panelists through the Q&A box. Some of you have also submitted your questions for our panelists at the time of registration, and we hope that many of your questions will be addressed during the discussions. If time is on our side, we will also take up some audience questions addressed to our panelists, but be sure to name the speaker your question is directed at if it is not a general question. You're also welcome to say hello to us and let us know where you are joining from through the chat box. You're welcome to engage with us at the UN Global Compact on social media. The Twitter hashtag and other relevant information will be shared by the team here via the chat box. So keep tweeting as we progress. Lastly, just a reminder that this event is being broadcast live and a recording of it will be uploaded onto the UNGC website. Okay, so we're all set to plunge into our discussion. The socio-economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic has been pervasive and poses unique challenges to governments, businesses, and UN agencies around the world, including on how to tackle the pandemic and protect the people while managing the response and relief efforts. So I'd like to open our discussion today by asking each of our speakers first to briefly reflect on the crisis and the impact that it currently has had on your respective organizations, your employees, and the communities in the Asia-Pacific region. If I could begin with the Undersecretary General Armida.
Yes, thank you very much, Rini. Good afternoon, good morning, friends and colleagues. One word, yeah. I think COVID-19 is a calamity. Yeah, unprecedented. Yeah, not only for our region, all over the world. Yes, not only health, socio-economic impact is huge, significant. Yeah, so that's my my take of the current situation. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary General Armida. We'd like to move to Sandra. Would you like to add your comments here?
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you for all the audience and colleagues. I just want to give a very quick update. Japan is currently under a declaration of emergency, and this declaration covered 7 prefectures on April 7th and nationally on April 17th. And on May 4th, the emergency was extended to the end of May, again nationally. And so as a country, we're still very much in the midst of the pandemic. And my organization, Kokusai Kogyo, has completely switched to work from home under the declaration of emergency. But I want to say that we have consistently acted on our own initiative ahead of the government recommendation since January. And the specific action we took are discussed in my video, which you can watch on Global Compact CEOs Taking Action video series, so I won't discuss it here. As a CEO, I choose to prioritize 3 things. First of all, my workforce, both their health and livelihoods, and the second is business continuity. And the third is to be socially responsible as an organization with over 2,000 people and take every action possible to mitigate the possibility of our adding to the number of cases. And we have chosen to work from home, even if it impacts productivity and come with technical challenges. We have chosen to accept additional cost, for example, protecting livelihoods through the pay leave for those who cannot work from home for various reasons. And we are crunching the numbers now while we are in this response phase, and we will plan for recovery based on the numbers and the data. From what I see, the situation and the government's response is different in each country, each working under the method that fits their culture and societal context. So in Japan, we are relying on individual self-restraint instead of internal coercion to contain the spread of COVID. Japan society actually brought down the person-to-person contact rate by 70 to 80% in the first week of May. So I believe in this Japanese context, it is very important for business and the individual to take action, definitely after a government request, and if possible, make your decision to start on time. I believe this is the responsibility of a CEO or business leader to maintain a key sense of risk in the global context and think and act on that understanding of risk at our own initiative without waiting for government and experts' recommendation. So this is my update here.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Wu. Jaime, if I could come to you, please tell us what your reactions are.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for this invitation. We had a hard lockdown here in the Philippines. This is the 57th day where things have basically closed down. It's an enhanced quarantine and probably not that different from many other countries, certainly comparable to many of our neighbors. So it's been tough. It's been tough for everyone, but I think the government has done the right thing in focusing on the health-related issues up front. And now we find ourselves, we're trying to balance health-related issues and obviously issues of employment and restarting an economy. Within our group, we're a multi-business group, as you pointed out. We have 72,000 staff globally, but 90 million customers. So we have responsibility both as an employer and also to the many consumers that we serve in the utilities that we handle. The particular thing about Greater Metro Manila as well, and something we're all sensitive to, is the fact that many of our workers in the greater city of Manila are on a no work, no pay basis. These are day laborers. And this has been very tough for large communities within the Philippines. And so it's not been an easy time. Like Sandra mentioned, we came up with a relief package pretty much at the start for our employees. We felt it was important to send them a signal that they would be safe and that we could ride this out together and make sure that they and their families were not concerned about financial matters and health-related matters. So everybody was on a work from home basis. We're under quarantine, but the issues of financial relief were there. But we went beyond, the employees. We have many constituencies that are part of our financial and economic ecosystem. So anyone who was paying rent in our buildings and the like, we basically said that we would condone all this for the moment until the lockdown finished. So we worked not only on the employees, but also on the ecosystem of the many smaller businesses that surround our group. And finally, one issue that's been an interesting phenomenon is I think there was an acute awareness among the Philippine business community up front that it would take the government a little bit of time to get the approvals necessary from our Congress to rebalance budgets, reallocate funds, and give financial support. And so essentially our group, together with many other business groups, came together very early on and put up actually a very large fund within between 48 hours to essentially have a cash transfer mechanism and a voucher system to get vouchers to the most economically vulnerable communities in the greater city of Manila. They would be the hardest hit. They work on a daily basis. And this has been a massive success. We use the parish system of the Catholic Church in the Philippines to distribute these vouchers. And that was an engagement that took place almost naturally among the Filipino community here. The final thought is that out of a negative situation has really come an embracing of digital technology in our country. Out of every difficult and negative situation comes some positives. And I think it's been fascinating to see the digital transformation of many of the products and services in our country. So maybe I think that can serve as a summary. We, of course, have been working hard hand in hand with our government to try and provide a supportive mechanism for us to ride out this issue while the Department of Health takes care of the health needs of the employees and the working public. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime, and thank you, Ms. Wu and the Undersecretary General for those very positive opening statements. I must say, the key thought being to turn the negative into the positive. So let me now direct a question to the Undersecretary General, Armida. The United Nations Economic and Social Commission of Asia and Pacific, UNESCAP, has released various policy briefs on the socioeconomic impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Could you possibly share some insights into how the pandemic will impact the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals in the region? And also, what are the major red flags that are there in the region which could decelerate the progress made so far?
Okay, again, thank you very much, Rini, for the question. If we look at the progress in countries in our region, actually there has been quite a lot of progress on the socio-economic front. Poverty reduction, a lot of progress in the socio-economic well-being, yeah, of the people, and also several countries, right, have also enjoyed significantly economic and social progress. Yeah, but then if we look more detailed, yeah, on the SDG progress, this is before COVID-19, yeah, before COVID-19 up to last year. So overall, the region, countries in the region are not on track for most of the SDG indicators, economic, social, and environment, yeah. But more importantly, on certain indicators related to, for example, inequality. Yeah, inequality, on indicators of progress related on environmental management areas, yeah, including climate change. Yeah, you know, climate change, including pollution upfront, especially air pollution, including sustainable consumption and production. So therefore, yeah, with COVID-19, although we are still early yet, like 1-2 months, yeah, but again, yeah, the impact has been very devastating. Yeah, so it will become even more challenging for SDG to safeguard SDG. Yeah, even there is increasing concern that progress made could be wiped out, right? Decades going back, yeah. If the situation persists especially lockdown, economic standstill. Yeah, not to mention the health impact, especially yeah, on those the vulnerable segment of our society. Again, Jamie alluded earlier on the informal sector, women, migrant worker, yeah. But again, I think it's cut across, yeah, cut across. Because of the economic standstill, and also certain sector may be hit hardest, like the tourism, hospitality sector, related sector, entertainment related sector, wholesale, retail, although shift, yeah, some to online, manufacturing become a breakdown of the value chain, yeah, and also country-wise, yeah. Country-wise, if the country is more open economically, then also the impact is also harder. Again, yeah, we again in our policy brief, yeah, we outlined that the impact of SMEs, connectivity, yeah, connectivity, transport, logistics, and so on. Job loss, unemployment, certainly, yeah, huge, and definitely on poverty, in which we actually made significant progress. So question is how to safeguard, yeah. Again, many countries already yeah, implement all this safeguard, social assistance, but not you know, maybe need to scale up further. So one issue, yeah, take away with regard to policy implication is to strengthen the social protection aligned with the healthcare system, yeah, not only for now but to prepare better for future. And again, to shift, yeah, how to prepare better on this digitalization and so on. But last is again, I haven't said this at this beginning, that we at UN, yeah, majority like all of you, yeah, work from home, but we tried our best, yeah, how to support, how to mitigate the impact across system-wide, us at the regional level, and then colleagues also working very hard at many dimensions, humanitarian, yeah, socio-economic impact, and so on and so forth, yeah, at the country level. So over to you, Arini. Thank you very much.
Under Secretary. This has been quite a learning curve for all of us. It's unprecedented and it's difficult for us to overcome, but I'm glad to know that you are really on the job, as it were, and, you know, keeping tabs on all the red areas that you flagged. So Jaime, if I could turn to you now, you're the 7th generation to lead this big conglomerate that has completed 185 years. Even with such a long history, a situation like this is really unprecedented for any company. No doubt that the closure of the vast majority of factories in the region will have a significant impact on some of the poorest and most vulnerable people working in the industry, like migrant workers, workers in the informal sectors, daily wages, and so on and so forth. What are some of the impacts that you're already experiencing with respect to SMEs in your supply chain? And how are you specifically working to address this issue?
No, thank you very much for that question. You're absolutely right. This is, well, of course, it's unprecedented in scope, but it hits that economically vulnerable group much more acutely than anyone else. So first, you've got the day laborers, and that's been very tough. For example, in our construction industry, we have 75,000 people who, you know, the following day had no work. We've been giving them economic support and basically riding out the interim period until the government's economic stimulus comes in. In the Philippines, about 60% of total annual revenues in the business sector come from groups that can be classified as small or medium industries. That's about 35% of gross domestic product. and employs about 63% of the Filipino workforce. That's a very, very important community. To a certain extent, their balance sheets, their ability to survive in a period like this is much, much tighter than, say, a large group with a bigger balance sheet. It's a very sensitive time for them and very difficult because there's just no way out of the room. There are no revenues, you can't move, you can't go out. We've been working hand in hand with the government to see what kind of economic stimulus would be necessary to give the government credit. They're coming up with a fund channeled through various sectors to support the banking sector, who in turn is supporting these medium-sized companies through a guarantee system and making it easier to give loans out. Our central bank has also created a lot of liquidity in the system, and they've indicated that they want the financial sector to be able to lend at a time like this at low interest rate environment. And that has been going well. But at the corporate sector, groups like us that also deal with a lot of these small and medium-sized industries, we have a role to play as well. The three issues that are important to them are health, first of all. The second is business continuity. And finally, financial support. Luckily, in a group like ours, we've been able to work on those three fronts. We have a health group in our team, and that health group has been able to come up with protocols. It's been able to come up with 24/7 telephone numbers where people can call in for the community that surrounds us and get advice. On the business continuity side, we've had telecommunication facilities that we've enabled across the board in ways that can be bought off the shelf, and people can access Wi-Fi directly in their homes. And on the financial side, the bank that is part of our group has been working hand in hand to build up its portfolio of support for this community. But that's just on our end. Many other Philippine groups are doing the same thing. And as I pointed out, various sectors of our government are also working hand in hand. Maybe the one point I wanted to make, Rini, at a time like this, which is actually quite unique, is this is a time for tremendous unity. Both the private sector and the public sector have been working together in an unprecedented way. And if there's one thing I've learned coming out of this situation, doesn't matter, what we do in the private sector or what the government does. What is important is to find a unity of purpose at a time like this. Everyone's hurting equally. Everyone's going through pain equally. And unless we all realize this is a time where we all have to work hand in hand together to address the situation, it'll be very difficult to tackle the problems at hand. Luckily for us, that sense of unity is very much apparent. That a day doesn't go by in the Philippines where the private sector and the public sector are not having dialogues, exchanging notes, seeing where we can help each other at all different levels. This is unprecedented in scope. We've not had this kind of coordinated attempt at addressing problems. And we hope the spirit of support, of continuity, continues post the quarantine period. The tricky thing now, of course, for these smaller industries and supporting them is how do you bring them back into the workforce in a safe way? We're spending a great deal of time within our own group looking at protocols, not only to bring our own employees back in, how to test them. We've actually ended up investing in testing facilities ourselves and working with accredited hospitals to support them. But we're working as well to see how we can create a safe environment for the medium-sized industries that also surround our group. And working, of course, hand in hand with the government to take testing up from its current level to a much higher level to create a safety net, I guess, as people enter the workforce. But the key message, I guess, Rini, I wanted to give is coordination, cooperation, and unity of action is key. And out of a difficult and painful situation, if we can all come out of this in a way that's created a new sense of purpose and unity in our constituency, in our communities, then I think there's a lot we can bring out of this difficult and painful period that we can build on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaime. If I could turn to you, Ms. Wu, as Jaime pointed out, that in times of crisis like this, strong leadership, the COVID-19 crisis and the economic shutdown that has resulted has severely tested corporate balance sheets, forcing some of the most responsible companies to make difficult choices. What are the steps that are being taken for the short-term benefits or financial needs of your company with your long-term, and how do you balance this with your long-term sustainability commitments? Ms. Wu?
Yes, Rini. For sure, there's no avoiding disruption to business and the impact to the corporate, excuse me, PL on the balance sheet. So, but for us, we did not have to shut down our business as our work supports the smooth running. Excuse me.
No problem.
Of critical, because our work supports the smooth running of critical social infrastructure, but everything had slowed down, and we are definitely not at the. Please don't worry, I have no problem with my health. Probably just a little bit nervous, so maybe my throat
It's just a slow down motion for everyone, so no problem. Take your time. Take your time. Breathe.
So, but I want to say that, yes, everything has slowed down and we are definitely not at the 100% productivity. But as what I said before, we are still in a very emergency response phase. So what we need to do now and where we are at right now is we have established the business continuity with the least disruption possible, while putting the safety of our workforce and the community first. So I do believe in this process, communication is a key. So what we have done is first, we need the understanding and the cooperation of our workforce. So in this particular crisis, COVID-19, even one positive result will shut down the entire office. So preventing the spread of COVID in the workforce becomes a top priority for both the workforce protection and the business continuity. So we let our people know what measures are in place, such as making it possible to work from home and subsidizing the paid leave, and what they need to do on their part to ensure their job security as well as the business continuity. And the second, we also need the understanding and the cooperation of our clients and the business partners. So we let them know what measures we are taking to prevent infection and how we would conduct our work under this crisis so that we would continue to operate to keep the impact of this crisis at the minimum and fulfill our work in keeping the social infrastructure running smoothly. And the third, we need the understanding and cooperation of our investors, shareholders, and the bank as well. We keep them informed about our measures and the impact on our PL and balance sheet transparently and also on time. I said we are in the emergency response phase, but this does not mean we are just reacting to the events. Every step of the way, we analyze whether what we did was correct and whether what was correct in the past is the right way for the future. So we are learning from this crisis as well, and we will apply our learning in planning our recovery and to improve our resilience as an organization long term. So lastly, on how I'm balancing the short term and the long term, I want to say that now the top priority, the short term, is to take action to respond to this crisis. But this action is actually help the society get over this crisis. In fact, it's part of our long-term sustainability commitment because our mission is to create a sustainable and resilient society. So dealing with this short-term crisis is not compromising our long-term sustainability commitment, actually is strengthening them. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. And it's really important to realize and focus on the fact that even though it's an emergency, you're not reacting, but you're also analyzing and learning from the entire process. So coming back to the Undersecretary General, the Secretary General has called for government, business, and civil society to work together to address this crisis. The UN Global Compact has also shared a special appeal, hashtag Uniting Business, around a corporate response to the COVID-19 pandemic for all companies to take collective action to stem the outbreak through implementing the 10 principles in the areas of human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption. Do you think, Undersecretary General, that this could be in sync, considering their diverse interests? And how does business respond to and support the UN efforts?
Yes, so very important, yeah, in this time of crisis, urgency, that business, not only business, yeah, everybody, all of us contribute to two streams together. Yeah, one is to help mitigate the impact. That's first and foremost, to help mitigate the impact. Yeah, which in this case, of course, yeah, jobs, yeah, because jobs, you know, if you don't have job, yeah, you cannot do anything. You have family, you have children, have to go to school, and all this getting unbearable. But then, of course, yeah, with government support with this various stimulus, yeah, how then you can align, yeah, you of course keep business afloat first, safeguard the jobs, yeah, as much as possible, but also how to align, yeah, the priority spending on the stimulus. So that's why, yeah, my point earlier, very important, yeah, to strengthen the social protection, align with also to strengthen the healthcare system and provision, yeah, and then people, right, the at least the health impact can be mitigated, and then the jobs and so on, yeah, can be also mitigated. Second is for business also to lead the way, yeah, on the opportunity to rebuild better, to recover and rebuild better. Again, yeah, we know this digitalization very important. So this is the time, yeah, for business as appropriate to invest or to transition, to transform quickly on the digitalization of their business. Some already do that, some not. Then there comes this issue of this digital divide, yeah, where I think this is the role of government and including us here in UN, yeah, how to facilitate, yeah, to close the digital divide. Then there is also another opportunity in the change of lifestyles of people. They want healthier lifestyle, yeah. So maybe a different kind of, I don't know, business of opportunity, yeah, is evolving, is opening up. Yeah, food, I don't know, yeah, many. I'm sure that the business colleagues, yeah, can open up, yeah, this opportunity and try to transition for some of the business. And then also opportunity, of course, in the education, healthcare system with all that supporting and so on that is needed. Domestic market, if we see, yeah, if we see from countries around the region across the globe, countries that have a quite large domestic market, yeah, maybe they can withstand better, yeah, so they can benefit better, and then they can how do you say it, yeah, utilize this to recover better, because to for the economy to open up, export import, you will need time, yeah, to resume, yeah, back to normal. But if you have already large domestic market, that is another opportunity, yeah. And then lastly again, I also second Jamie earlier point, yeah, in this region, yeah, the tenets, yeah, the spirit of solidarity, of self-help, yeah, of also taking care, or if our neighbor, yeah, is having this hardship and so on, this automatically, right, it's built in, yeah, like a built-in stabilizer, yeah, the built-in stabilizer, people, community in our region. Thank you. Over to you, Rini.
Yeah, thank you so much, Under Secretary General. Well, you know, we're being joined by a lot of people from around the world, so I'd just like to remind you that you can keep tweeting during the session using the hashtags hashtag Uniting Business and hashtag COVID-19. So I'd like to move to Jaime now. Many countries in the Asia-Pacific region were the first, as it were, to experience the transnational effects of COVID-19. While the region suffered adverse impact, rather severe adverse impact, some inspiring instances of regional cooperation that even the Secretary General spoke of, and the collective action that emerged from the region. These are some examples of the Asia-Pacific region, that we have with us. So could you share some of that? And how have you or your experience been in leading the private sector's response with your government?
No, thank you very much, Rini. It certainly has brought a sense of the collective, a crisis like this. From my perspective, it's been less about a regional impetus, although, of course, there's been a great deal of sharing and learning from each other. A day doesn't go by where we don't also look at what our partners and friends in other countries are doing. We learn from them, and I think that spirit of sharing is very much there. Where I think that sense of cooperation has been most apparent, certainly from my perspective, is between the public and private sector in the Philippines. And that sense of a collective agenda, a need to work together, a reliance on each other has been very apparent. Our group, for example, was tapped by the government, one of the first groups to basically turn what was a World Trade Center, a trade floor, and turn it into a COVID-19 preparatory hospital for the returning workers from abroad, into a 500-bed facility. We were able to do that in about a week and a half and worked hand in hand with the government to do that. They provided the space, the people to run it, but they said they needed a construction company to do that. We worked very carefully with the Red Cross. They wanted to ramp up their testing capabilities in the Philippines, and we helped them reconstruct their area and turn it into a facility that was necessary for that. We have also worked with other institutions in the Philippines in the healthcare field, 2 or 3 of them, together with the Department of Health in the Philippines and actually the Asian Development Bank, to reconstitute a framework around testing, agree how we could ramp it up and bring resources to bear to the hospital system and the equipment necessary to ramp up testing from the 3,000 we started at to 30,000 people a day that we would like to aim for, if not more, and take it up to 50,000. There was massive collaboration between the public sector, the Department of Health, the public hospitals, the private healthcare facilities, and the corporate sector to help fund and quickly order the kind of testing equipment that was necessary to ramp up the country's capacity to be able to test from a lowish level to the kind of level that would be necessary to protect the workforce re-entering the formal economic sector. I think that issue of a public-private partnership, that cooperation between both parties has been, I guess, the most apparent in our country. I think many countries have been working hand in hand with their own communities to address these many issues. Many of the things that Armida mentioned really ring a bell here in the Philippines as well. The issue of employment has been paramount, and the role of the private sector in getting that started. The issue of the digital divide, just so important, particularly the educational sector, as people start and cannot go back to school. These young students are relying on digital frameworks to be able to continue their learning. The issues of lifestyle. Our own company, Armida, is trying to just study for the first month or 2 after coming out of quarantine how people's behavioral patterns are changing. The consumer may not be the consumer of the past. And these are all issues of importance, but more than anything, Rini, to go back to your question, issues of cooperation, while the many multilateral institutions, including the Asian Development Bank here in the Philippines, which has been a big presence here in the Philippines and very, very much a part of some of the solution finding taking place. More than anything, it's been this sense of cooperation between the public and private sector that has been a strong driver of some of the results orientation that we've had in our country.
Thank you, Jaime. Sandra, if I could turn to you, it is said that unprecedented challenges usually present opportunities to think of innovative solutions, and often businesses are known for their power of innovation. Can you share with us how business can reinvent and redeploy resources to develop effective solutions for ensuring business continuity? Maybe you have some specific actions that your company has taken?
Yes, Rini. But before the business innovation, I think what is most important actually is to have a business continuity plan. We'll need to talk about this basic thing, the BCP. I have been working with the UN Office of Disaster Risk Reduction, UNDRR, for nearly 10 years. So let me draw on the language of disaster risk management. Preparedness is key to disaster risk management. It affects everything that comes afterwards. So you need to be prepared to make a good response, and you need to be prepared to make a good recovery and to build back better. So for business, being prepared means having a BCP or BCM in place. But there are many businesses, especially the SMEs, that have not taken this basic step. And there is a ripple effect when the SMEs go down. So we need everyone to be prepared this way. But one big difference of pandemics to other disasters is the difficulty in timing of going into crisis mode. Effective response requires three things hand in hand, I believe. First, planning before the crisis. Second, leadership in decision-making to launch the plan. And third, a management system that allows you to constantly analyze and correct course. So my company has had a BCP based on an influenza scenario in place since 2011. And we had just revised this plan in December 2019, and it has really helped us jump into action, as I described in my previous answers. This COVID crisis, following SARS and MERS and other events we went through, tells us that we should expect 1 in 100 pandemic events to occur at less than 10 years intervals. And at my company, we will definitely be drawing up a new plan based on COVID once things settle down. And beyond my own organization, Global Compact Networks Japan's Disaster Risk Reduction Working Group has been discussing business continuity together since 2014. So during this COVID crisis, the working group is acting as an informal information sharing platform, and it is helping network member companies to collectively act ahead of the curve, particularly in deciding when to go into the crisis mode. And I do believe this is an effective solution for continuity that can be copied by local networks elsewhere. So regarding the business innovation, as Amen and the Under Secretary General Amida mentioned, actually innovation is happening right now in the way we now work under this crisis from home and with less travel and so on. This emergency has provided a good opportunity to change our ways. We say that the disaster are a window of opportunity to build back better. So this crisis is an opportunity to reinvent the way we work, accelerate innovation, do things differently so that we can collectively achieve decent work, inclusiveness and gender equality, climate action, and sustainability. So over to you, Rini.
Thank you very much, Sandra. We have a couple of questions now for Jaime and for Sandra. So if I could just place the question there for you, and then you can decide who wants to take on this. The COVID-19 crisis is placing increased scrutiny on how companies are addressing the S, that is the social, in environmental social governance, or ESG. Investors and consumers have become more conscious of how companies are treating their employees, their suppliers, and the communities in which they operate. Ensuring their well-being is also important for business continuity, as was mentioned by Sandra and by Jaime earlier. Do you think that this trend is here to stay? Are you noticing any positive changes within the business community? Jaime and Sandra, who wants to go first? Jaime, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. No, I think massively important. The whole issue of a social compact that we all have as members of civil society, whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're a for-profit, whether you're a government employee, whether you're a local government unit, the community that really makes you what you are, your employee force, your teams, the people who go out, and many who are in the front line under very difficult circumstances are the core of what makes you an effective institution. From our point of view, we wanted right up front, right the first day, we realized how much insecurity would take place, both from a health point of view and a financial point of view in their lives. I have to say we're not the only ones. I think everybody realized this. And I think as far as I can see in the Philippine business community, people understood this day one. They understood that during a period like this where things just clamp down, issues, insecurity, remember, we're an emerging market. We don't have the support mechanisms of many developed countries where they have unemployment benefits and the like. In many cases, in a country like ours, there is no support mechanism or large one. And so the level of insecurity is very high when a whole economy clamps down. We felt that we had to come out there and give people a sense of security in their financial well-being so that they wouldn't worry as we rode out a very difficult period. I think the government has also had a role, and they've tried their best to start creating funds and mechanisms to give people that security. But this issue of focusing on the social and understanding that this is not just about productivity and maximizing returns. This is about a community working hand in hand. Our ecosystems really now are so linked, particularly in the business sector. You know, as life has moved on, both nationally and internationally, all our ecosystems and the business fund to be productive and bring costs down have become interlinked in ways that were unprecedented. I think it's important that all of us take pain together and build together again. This sense of a community spirit, particularly on the social side, is imperative to success. I think some countries will have more of it than others, but all of us have a role in developing it and building on it. And I think it's absolutely critical. It's the fabric, I guess, of our communities and how we work together and building trust within those, particularly at a time of need like this, that will create the foundation for success in the long term. I feel it's very important and glad that the question was answered. Thank you.
Sandra, would you like to add any points to this?
Yes, I just want to quickly add is, yes, this is the trend. As I just mentioned in my answer, this is really an opportunity, a window of opportunity to accelerate all this innovation, all this ESG investment, as well as the company mainstream this ESG as SDG into company's business plan, as well as the running of the company. Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. We have a question coming from, there are lots of questions that are coming in, and I know that the team is trying to sift through those questions, but we're really, running tight on our time schedule. So we have about 15 minutes now. So if I could just turn to the three of you. It's been really inspiring hearing all of you and the opportunities and challenges for leadership in the face of this crisis that you're facing. Before we close, I'd like to just bring all three of you in to reflect very briefly and share some final thoughts on how the current crisis can change business decisions in the future. Can the crisis be a chance to create a better economy? And how can we, as business, society, community, the UN, all bounce back from this horrible crisis and perhaps become resilient to any more crises that stand in our way in the future? Under Secretary General, would you like to take that on first?
Okay, thank you very much. Again, in any crisis, there is always a sort of a silver lining. As much as the situation, is like this situation now, right? Worse situation, but always, there is opportunity. So I think, of course, everybody, including business, needs to lead again. Reiterate the point, to lead again, to take on the leadership and see the opportunity going forward. And it is not only about investment in the physical infrastructure per se. For example, way forward is almost for sure on this digital economy, digitalization. So it's not only about, okay, let's invest on this computer and network, yeah, that kind of thing, but also how to invest in the soft infrastructure, the switch, yeah, the change of mindset, the change of behavior. Likewise in education, e-education cannot, transform. Okay, if you have the laptop, children have the laptop, and then suddenly you can transform. No, then you have to change, yeah, the mindset of the teacher, the way the teacher teach, and that kind of thing, yeah. So you need, my point is, you need both the investment in the physical infrastructure related areas, as well as the investment in the soft infrastructure related areas. So I'm pretty sure that there is huge opportunity, yeah, for business in the future. And last point is always, yeah, you need to do this in tandem with all stakeholders, yeah, and definitely with government. And again, I just want to reiterate the point, yeah. If countries have the social protection system, social assistance system in place, and strengthen healthcare system in place, future crises, including this health pandemics, I think we are much better prepared. For that, then you need to invest, including in tandem with business and other stakeholders. Over to you, Rin. Thank you.
Right. If I could move to Sandra, would you like to respond to this? Are there any points that you would add?
Yes, from this COVID-19, it made me think about this. This crisis is like a direct result of extreme globalization and connectedness in the movement of peoples and goods, and also the urbanization and the rising inequality resulting in slums, stress of our human population encroaching our ecosystem, overproduction and the overconsumption, and so on. So I think this crisis is not just a call to change the business decision, it is a call to change our way of life. So as an individual, as a CEO, and as a Global Compact board member, I will definitely be paying attention to this crisis and learning from it. There are many practical lessons learned and things to improve, but importantly, this crisis has shown that our decision to mainstream sustainability and climate action into our business was the correct one. And we will continue to provide services that would make communities green. And COVID will slow down our business in the near term for sure, but I believe that it will be a wake-up call for many potential clients in the public and the private sector, and will in fact increase their investment into resilience on the mid to long term, creating more business opportunity for us. And as a business community, I think we already have the tools in the form of the ESG principle, environmental, social, and the governance, to make the right management and the investment decisions. We might need to add the resilience to the ESG principle and make it ESGR. And we need to make this ESG or ESGR thinking our top priority. So this crisis is an opportunity to bring this about. And as my good friend and the head of UNDRR, Mami Mistori, said, COVID-19 is a wake-up call. It would be a fatal mistake to reach for the snooze button. So I will be working with the UN Global Compact as Global Compact board member to challenging our community to rethink our overall priority. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Although you are a little dark on the screen, but I think you can be the light and the beacon for a lot of businesses around the world with your roadmap forward, as it were. Jaime, if I could ask you to add your comments. What are the lessons learned and what's the way forward for you?
Maybe two last thoughts, Rini. Thank you for the opportunity. The first is an unusual one. We're a group that's been in business a long time. We're used to long-term planning and looking very, very long-term. For the first time in my life, I'm looking very short-term, and I'm happy to be doing so. We've taken our planning process, which is generally very long. We tend to look 3 to 5 years ahead, and just shrunk it. We put all those folders aside, and we're looking at 3 phases. The first phase is how to get our employees back into the workforce in a safe way. We're investing in testing equipment, testing protocols, whole new ways of looking at keeping people safe. And that's just the very short term, how to get people in as a first phase. The second phase will be to something that Armida said, which is how are people going to start behaving? The next 2 months after getting people back out, we'll be really studying the changes in consumer behavior, understanding how people have evolved, how they buy, how they purchase, how they interact, how they get products and services, and really relearn all of that and see if we can address it in a new way. And the final stage of our planning will be the 2 last quarters of this year. We'll be taking all that information, the safety of workers, the protocols necessary, how consumers are behaving, and integrate it into a new plan to see how we behave moving forward. So I just wanted to leave that last thought, that the short term has become more important than the long term in our lives at this point in time. And the second point, to bring closure, goes to things that Sandra has been saying about resilience. We're a proud member of the Global Compact of the United Nations. We're also big supporters of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. If ever there is a time for us to look at all the issues that basically blend our objectives and make them part and parcel of the social and economic development of the country, it is now. This has shown how vulnerable we all are. I think Sandra's words of the importance of resilience moving out is vastly important. How we create a sense of community among all of us, and how we all work hand in hand to create the right kind of environment for success, whether you're in the nonprofit sector, the profit sector, the government. All of us have a stake in this together, and I think that's very much in the spirit of what the Sustainable Development Goals, I guess, of the UN has tried to create. If ever there's a time to basically reflect on the way we've all been doing things and reflecting on the kind of world we want to create, it is now. And I think many great lessons from all that we have learned, even though we're going through a difficult time, there's a great deal we can learn from all of this and bring us out of here in a more unified way, a more resilient way, as Sandra says, and a more sustainable way, as Armida has pointed out. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Jaime, Sandra, and the Undersecretary General. We're reaching the end of our session, and most of you have mentioned how various stakeholders are coming together to mobilize action on the ground. I want to mention here that the UN Global Compact's local networks are in 68 countries, 14 of which are in the Asia-Pacific region, and they've really been at the forefront of mobilizing local response and relief efforts. Global Compact local networks have launched a diverse range of local initiatives that fall under these categories. Activation of working groups, support of medical campaigns, strengthening of public-private partnerships, creation of leadership webinars at the national and regional levels, creation of new online resources to support companies, addressing of inquiries from businesses nationally and also from abroad, and enhancing of coordination with the UN resident coordinators. So, citing a few examples here, Networks India and Malaysia are hosting a webinar series that takes a deep dive on the impact of the pandemic and the actions to address these impacts. Network Japan, Sandra, you'll be happy to know, has mobilized its disaster risk reduction working group, which you're a part of, to share their knowledge with the business community. Network Bangladesh, Thailand, and Indonesia are part of a multi-stakeholder effort to procure medical supplies and equipment for the communities there. Nepal has fundraised for relief efforts. The Philippines is continuing to engage its stakeholders on SDGs and sustainability-related issues. So a lot really is being done, and I encourage all of you to connect with the local networks in the respective countries to join these efforts and to help them strengthen them. So a huge thank you to our panelists for sharing your thought-provoking ideas and insights with us. This has given us certainly some food for thought, reflection, and action. Thank you also to the audience that joins us from so many different places. If you do want to hear more about the perspectives from other regions, let me remind you that we have 4 other sessions today, which you're all welcome to join. Just for you to know, these sessions cover the Middle East, Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, and Africa. So the registration link is in the chat box. Do register and join in the conversations that take place there. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy.